Hi everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week our guest is Jenny Heck, Market Manager and Communications Manager at Mill City Farmers Market in Minneapolis, Minnesota, about supporting farmers and food producers through their Next Stage grant program. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I'm a longtime Farmers Market Manager, Vendor 101 co-teacher, and Education Coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market Manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and logistics coordinator for Intense, the Farmers Market Conference 2022, which is coming swiftly in March.
Like, where did October go? Or where'd the rest of this year go?
I don't know.
I don't understand.
No idea.
Yeah, so coming right up.
March cometh.
March cometh. Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by WhatsGood. Creating pre-order and online pickup systems can add to your market income no matter how safety protocols evolve. WhatsGood makes that process easier with a simple-to-navigate platform that easily connects shoppers with your farmers, food purveyors, and your market. To set up your market for online ordering success, click on the WhatsGood logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. Today we are talking with Jenny Heck, one of the market managers at Mill City Farmers Market in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In addition to her position at the market, she works with multiple local food marketing collaborations and is the board secretary for Kalimo, Minnesota Incubator Farm. Welcome, Jenny.
So much for having me. I am a longtime listener, first-time caller.
Oh, yay!
Yay! We love talking to listeners of our show. It's so
We do.
fun.
I love that. We're glad you could join us today. So we'll just kind of jump right in. If you want to tell us a little bit about your personal and business background and how you ended up in farmers market operations.
Yeah, so my background, my education, and my first job were both in horticulture. I worked at an arboretum on some vegetable production farms. But if you know anything about the industry in Minnesota, with our climate, about 90% of the horticulture work is seasonal. So I had a couple part-time jobs to sustain me through the full year. And one of those jobs was working the info booth at Mill City Farmers Market. So I actually started doing that in 2013. And then at the end of 2015, this full-time manager job opened at our market. So I got that position, and this was now my 6th season as manager.
Wow, you're a pro.
Yeah.
That's right. You are a pro. So tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like as a farmers market manager there, because I know it's a little bit different for each of us, but what does it look like there for you?
So the Mill City administrative team, we have one full-time executive director, 2 full-time managers, and then we have a part-time development manager who helps us with our fundraising and sponsors, grants, and then also a part-time bookkeeper. So the managers, on Saturdays when our market takes place, we take turns doing that, which is really great for like burnout and stuff, not to have to do every single Saturday. So either one of us will be there on a Saturday. And then during the week, we break up the tasks. So Sarah, the other manager, she does a lot of our behind the scenes stuff, like vendor applications, our weekly maps, manages our info booth and operations staff, other like behind the scenes, helping vendors with paperwork and things like that. And she also manages our food donation program. And
Wait,
then
are you
during
telling me that there's actually, that managers work in between market days? Is that what you're saying?
We're not volunteers. We actually have other things to do. to host a large event every week.
That is so great, though. When you said that you and the other market manager get to like flip-flop Saturdays, me and Bridget were like nodding furiously about how that must really help that burnout or just being able to like have a life on a Saturday, which most other people have Saturdays off. So that's wonderful that your team is large enough to flip-flop those weekends.
Yeah, especially in Minnesota, I feel so lucky because summers are very precious with our weather. And so to be able to travel when it's nice out and, enjoy a barbecue or a week at the cabin, things like that are really important. So we're very lucky to be able to do that. So the other half, what I do during the week is kind of the remaining more public-facing work that us market managers do. So I answer public, phone calls, emails. I do our social media and website, newsletter, and other like print marketing. And then we have a few other market programs that I manage, such as any events we used to do, cooking demos. We had a nutrition internship, and then our grant program. But with all that being said, we work together very much. I mentioned Sarah does our applications. She reads through all of them, but then we make those decisions as a group, or the roles also evolve quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, definitely. I like the division of tasks. I think that kind of makes it easier if you have a team to kind of break that up so that everyone can have a deeper focus on what they're doing and then collaborate on other things like vendor applications and things like that, making the map and stuff. But it sounds like you guys have divided those tasks nicely. And it is nice advice to other market managers to try to do the flip-flopping thing if you can, try to divide it up, because when you try to take it all on yourself, it's a lot. So yeah, sounds like you guys have a good system.
So Jenny, can you tell us just a little bit about the basics of your market? So we see that it's on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., but then you have kind of a different seasonal schedule.
Yes. So we are every Saturday, May to October, with about the past couple of years, we've done about capacity for 50 vendors. Before we did social distancing, it was more like 65 to 70 vendors during the outdoor market. And then in the winter, we're a year-round market. We have markets about twice a month indoors, and the stalls are quite a bit smaller, and we have capacity for about 35 or more like 45 without the distancing.
Okay, cool. So that's still a pretty robust market during the winter season. How many of your vendors are typically farmers?
So we have, in 2021, we had around 90 vendors. But again, only capacity for about 50. 30 of those 90 are artists, which kind of rotate. So we only have, 5 to 10 each week. But then farmers, which includes, produce, flowers, even like fiber, herbs, body care, meat, dairy. Farmers is about 26 of the 90.
And do they rotate as well, or do they usually come every week?
Most of them are full-time, but a handful are part-time. Or we've got someone who specializes in tulips or peonies or whatnot, and they're, obviously seasonal. In the winter, we've got about 10, 15 that stick around year-round. Obviously the dairy, meat can do that, but a lot of our produce vendors as well, they have heated greenhouses and storage crops to stick around all year.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
I was wondering about that, in the depths of winter in Minnesota, how many farmers you might have at your market.
Yeah, I think for a while, certain parts of the country, winter markets were like beets.
Yeah.
Maybe the occasional turnip or potato. But now, so many farmers we're seeing all across the country are able to extend their seasons with the hoop houses and things.
Yeah, that's great. So who shops your market? Like, I've been to Minneapolis. My brother used to live in Minneapolis, so I would go there in the summer sometimes to visit. But like, what's the neighborhood that the market is in, and like, what's the vibe? Who's shopping at your market?
Yeah. So Mill City Market is downtown Minneapolis. So it's about half mile or a mile east of the like business district. We, a handful of skyscrapers. So it's more a residential area. It's called the Mill District. So our market and, the office here used to be the Gold Medal Flour Mill. Pillsbury Mill's across the street. We're right on the river. So there's a lot of tourism in the area with the beautiful river walk and the Guthrie Theater. Our market's actually half inside a museum. But, the neighborhood varies dramatically in terms of who lives here. So we've got everything from subsidized housing communities to hotels to $1 million condos to like assisted living facilities. It's seen a lot of development in the past 15 years, and that's also not surprisingly when the market popped up about 15 years ago when all that development started. But we do know, like, we do dot surveys every year, and about 60% of our customers are from Minneapolis residents, and about half of that 60% are in our neighborhood, surrounding neighborhood.
Wow, that's great that you do those dot surveys every year. That's
I love a
incredible.
good dot survey.
Me too.
I do.
Yeah. And they look really cute.
They do.
Yeah.
It's
They're
like,
awesome.
Data, that looks cute.
Yeah. Did I hear you say that half of your market is inside a museum?
You did. It's a very unique space, which makes the maps extremely tricky. So we've got, it's called the Mill City Museum, and it's inside the ruins of the Gold Medal Flour Mill, which exploded.
Oh.
Okay.
It sounded so charming for a second, then not so much.
They do some good marketing around it. It's funny. But so they've got a covered train shed space where the trains used to, take away flour and deliver grain. And so it's open air market, but it's got this tin structure surrounding it. We've got the train tracks still there and everything. So half of our market is there, and then it's L-shaped. The other half is in an open plaza in between that building and then a theater, the Guthrie Theater on the other side.
Sounds so cool.
Yeah,
so in the
cool,
winter, do you just pull everything inside, or how does that work?
Last winter, we brought people inside that covered train shed space, but typically, and what we're planning to do this year is to have everyone inside the museum. Temperatures get very cold. So, it can range anywhere from 40 degrees, that would be a high on a great day, to -10. So
You're scaring us San Diego girls over here.
Yeah.
We're having a hard time with that.
Yeah, it might be a hard number to process, but a lot of our vendors, after last year were like requested to be inside this year, not only for their own comfort, but also their product, like produce especially, or even some of the like oil-based things, and all that product can't freeze. It really affects the quality.
Yeah. I imagine things just like shattering.
Right?
Yeah.
that kale just...
Yeah.
Kale confetti.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as it sounds. I always tell people, like, once you hit like 10, 15, like the difference between 10 and -10 is negligible. Like your skin really can't.
Yeah. You're just dead anyway. So.
Yeah.
You're
It's
just
like
a
in
popsicle.
Arizona where,
Yeah.
110, 130, what's a dip?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it works on the other end too.
Yeah. Woo, boy. Do you have formal protocols still in place for COVID? I mean, when you're talking about distancing, are you still distancing? And are you still masking or any of those things?
We are not requiring masks outside right now, which is all of our market except the restrooms. For winter, we will require face coverings. We have sampling back. But we still are doing distancing with our vendor spacing. We have not brought back events that draw a crowd, like live music or demos, things like that.
Well, so different one part of the country to the other, I will say. I was just back east at markets in New York and Philadelphia, and there's a lot of people masked there. And in California now, we're really not so much. If we're outside, most people do not have masks on.
Yeah.
Idaho has, we're hearing from them that they've got mandates in place again now for outdoor masking. Yeah, it's interesting how different things are in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary.
Never know.
So we're really interested in your Next Stage grant program. That's something that y'all do that's really different. You don't see many people doing that, and it's so important. I think we're all going to get a rude awakening in the next 10 or 12 years about the supply chain that funnels farmers into markets. We're running out of farmers if we're not careful. So the fact that y'all are doing grant programs for new farmers and producers is hugely important. So can you give a little bit of a background on how that started and how it works? Just kind of an overview.
Yeah, so the Next Stage grant program is, my favorite part of my job. Like you said, it's just so meaningful, and it's a very cool program. It started in 2013. We had a vendor who had blight hit their farm and a virus for their garlic crop. And the farm specialized in garlic, dozens of varieties. And if you know anything about garlic farming, you know that not only affected her harvest for that fall, but it was also her seed for next spring, because you plant the cloves as your seed. So it was a devastating loss for her. And we have an annual dinner. And at that dinner, we just, reached out. It's a ticketed fundraiser dinner. Reached out to see if we could raise some money to support her. And we did. And we continued doing that. There were some other hardship requests, an arson at one of our farmers' barns, weather-related crop loss. And we were able to fundraise for those things as well. Over the years, the money we were able to fundraise at this dinner started to exceed the requests in hardship. So we opened it up.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's a nice problem
we
to have.
have a very generous market community that's been supporting this program. And so with that extra funds, we opened it up to, not just hardship, where maybe someone wants to expand and build a second greenhouse, things like that. And in 2018, we established a 501c3 nonprofit sister organization. So that's tax-exempt nonprofit, allowed us to expand this grant program and our other charitable work. So now we're reaching, not just our own vendors, but farmers across the region, and also reaching out to food makers too.
Great. So the funding from the program comes from what? Maybe, since you're a nonprofit now, are you getting grants that help you on this? Are you still throwing a lot of dinners? Probably not so many dinners in last year, but are you still seeing this more as a fundraising program within your community, or how are you funding this?
We rely on that annual dinner for the majority of the funding for this program. We have a live auction, and then at the end of the live auction, there's a fund in need that supports this program. Starting in 2016, we also have been receiving support from a corporate donor, CoBank. They're an agricultural bank. So they've found a great fit, and they've been supporting the grant program as well. But it's that sponsorship as well as individual donations at this event.
Oh, that's amazing. So who do you look for when you look for applicants? Are you looking at small farmers that are just growing? You're looking at older farmers that need help transitioning? And I'd love to hear more about the food makers that you're including as well.
Yeah. So eligibility, you need to sell at a farmer's market. It doesn't have to be our market, but it does need to be a market. And then, we give a little more preference to people with a higher percentage of their sales coming from direct to consumer. So whether that's CSA, farmers market, roadside stand, whatever, we're looking for that direct to consumer based businesses. We're looking for vendors either in Minnesota or within kind of 200 miles of Minneapolis. So we get a lot of Western Wisconsin folks coming into the Twin Cities food shed. We're looking for sustainable farmers, and then also people who have been in business for more than 1 year. So we call it, the next stage grant. It's not necessarily for startups, it's to reach the next stage.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. And what are the ranges of the grants that people get? So how much are they receiving?
They range between $1,000 and $7,000. $7,000 is the cap. The average is actually around $5,000. So we do.
That's a really great grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you say that to a donor or someone who, the corporate bank or whatever, that it sounds so modest, but, as you guys know, it's very meaningful and brings, that much needed financial stability.
Yeah, that amount of money can be really meaningful to somebody that's in the first couple of years of a business.
Yeah. For a small business owner, $5,000 can really change your life.
It can be a make it or break it too if you need like a piece of equipment or something that's you need to further your business. So.
I was looking at some of the videos that you use, I guess, to promote the grant, and a couple of the grantees were talking about, one of them was use the money to buy tools. They were literally on their knees weeding before, and now they have the hoe that swivels that you can weed. And she said it increased their production, like doubled it. So it's amazing what some small investments will do. What other kind of projects have you funded? Do you have a couple off the top of your head that are favorites or that you thought made a huge difference?
Well, most common is that kind of equipment that, just really increases efficiencies. Also, building greenhouses and cold storage are very common, again, very basic things for your farm, but really make a huge difference. And, the greenhouses especially, not only does that allow for season extension, which again is huge in our weather, we get a bad rap for talking about it too much, I think.
You said 10 below. I can see how that'd be something that'd get your attention.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it also, greenhouses are great for like combating climate change. Like you can control when a flood hits the farm, you can control how much water hits your crops. Or this year we had big drought, and they could, put shade cloth on top of the greenhouse to reduce the heat stress on the crops. Having those greenhouses are really important. A fun one we funded this year is we have a longtime vendor who raises sheep, and they make sheep's milk cheeses. And they bought equipment to bottle sheep's milk, just plain, and they're going to sell it starting this fall now as like coffee creamer, and so I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, that's awesome. Do you have a lot of regulations around that? I know in a lot of states it's tricky to sell milk other than cow milk. Actually, it's tricky to sell milk direct to consumer in a lot of states.
It will be pasteurized, so that's, I think, eliminates. I know that's not legal in Minnesota, but they've been going through their inspections all summer. So
that's great.
I'm sure Jody would have much more to say to that question. But,
yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
You don't hear about sheep's milk that much. You hear goat, and we actually have a camel dairy. Not too far from us, but you don't hear too much about sheep's milk. Yeah. So that's a food maker, but also a farmer. Are there other food makers that have gotten grants that are not farmers?
We have one application a couple years ago. I think it was 2019. A vendor who processes garlic scapes into a garlic scape pesto.
Oh, that sounds yummy.
And it's a very cool business because she's kind of purchasing this byproduct from farms. If they're growing garlic, they often don't have a huge market for the scapes, maybe a few bunches at markets or whatnot. But so she's able to buy those scapes and process them. She bought a commercial food processor. I think she was renting one at her commercial kitchen, but she wanted to have her own to, control things a little more.
That's
so that
great.
was a great project.
And waste reduction as well, I would imagine, right? Because those scapes were probably just getting composted in or plowed under.
And just, she's sourcing from her local farmer, which always makes a lovely packaged food I'm at the farmer's market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's called Escape Pesto for anyone in the Minnesota area.
Kat appreciates that.
I'm also looking for that name of that sheep's milk. I hope it's catchy.
Shepherd's Way dairy, so not quite as.
Yeah. All right,
Still works.
good enough.
No puns. They come.
Yeah, no puns. Darn. How complicated is the grant application for your Next Stage grants?
So accessibility is very important to us. Our application is about 3 pages. A lot of that is like short answer, name, address, those kind of simple questions. So many grants like foundation grants or the USDA grants, if people are familiar, I've done them before. They take like 30, 40 hours to complete. And the majority of farmers and small business owners don't necessarily have that kind of time.
And they're intimidating.
Yeah. So we work really hard to keep it accessible. When we're reviewing grants, I make it very clear to the committee that like spelling, all that kind of stuff, we don't care. Like, we're not focused on that. We work with people who might not speak English as a first language to help them fill it out too. So just again, like, we really are not concerned about that kind of thing and trying to make it as accessible as possible for hardworking makers and farmers.
That's awesome. Do you have a pretty diverse farmer base there? Do you have a lot of Hmong farmers?
We do.
In your area? Yeah.
A lot of them in the farmers markets, especially, which is great. We had a lot of refugee population in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah, I thought so. That's
and
great.
We have some really great, partners and nonprofits like the Hmong American Partnership and the Hmong American Farmers Association working to support Hmong farmers as well.
Oh, that's terrific. That's awesome. So now that the grant program has been around for a while, do you have a sense of how it's impacted the farmers market? Has it increased the strength or the longevity of your farmers and vendors there?
Yeah, and that was really the goal all along, supporting our own vendors and then now supporting vendors throughout the region. But we've seen improvements to products. I mentioned cold storage. So if you're a flower farmer who didn't have cold storage, now you're able to chill your flowers before you sell them. You can have a better product and also sell it for a higher price. Improving quality of life in other areas, like Kat mentioned in our video, we have one of the farmers quoting like, this job used to take like 8 hours with a shovel and now it takes 3 hours. Like, it's just amazing to see that, to keep farmers farming longer. I think those are huge impacts we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I really love what you're doing. Somebody else in that video, and the video is great, by the way, if you tune into Mill City's website, there's somebody that just got a grant to put up deer fencing. And if you know anything about farming in areas where there's deer, that's an enormous thing. They were losing a lot of their crops. Yeah, they are. They're clever little rascals. But there's somebody else that mentioned that going through the grant process with you gave them the confidence and a little bit of knowledge to be able to apply for other grants, for things like USDA grants and things that were intimidating before, but now that they've been through a grant process, they felt like they could tackle it. So it's huge, the resilience that you're providing with that program.
Like a gateway grant.
And
that's right, gateway grant.
If you say you've been awarded one grant and you say, this is how I spent it and this is how it's improved my business, it kind of gives you a little line on your grant resume for future things you want to apply for. So.
Yeah, so smart. So if you're funding most of this, it sounds like, with your fundraising dinner, Can you tell us a little bit about how that went in 2020 and 2021? Did you have a physical dinner? Did you have to modify that?
We did. We modified it, but we did have it. We did not have it in 2020, but about a month ago now, we had the Harvest Social Dinner is what we call it. So it's a ticketed dinner, and we purchase food from our farmers, and we have chefs, like the people who used to lead our cooking demos. Those chefs prepare the food, cater it for us essentially. The event also has like a cocktail hour, live music, live auction. This year, it takes place at the museum. They offer like wedding venues and things, so we use one of those spaces, which is outdoors. And then it's normally 250 guests, but this year we did 150 outside. We also limited the silent auction, which was actually really nice to not have to manage all that.
I know how that goes, actually.
We've all worked those.
Yeah. But yeah, with all those changes and scaling down, we met our goals. So it was a really successful event. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
How much is the ticket price for that dinner?
It was $200 this year, and in years past it's been $125.
Oh, okay, good. So smaller crowd, but you still were able to raise a lot of funds by taking that price up a little bit. Yeah.
I'm sure people were so excited to go to a lovely event like that they're willing to
We miss those.
pay a little extra to be invited.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have a cookbook author, and her name is escaping me right this minute, but that's done a lot with the Minneapolis markets. Does she get involved with what kind of chefs contribute to your fundraiser?
So we've got 3 different chefs that we work with pretty regularly: Jenny Breen, Nettie Cologne, and Beth Jones. You may be thinking of Beth Dooley as
that is who I was thinking of. Yeah,
we work with Beth Dooley quite a bit too. She actually offered an item in our live auction to cook dinner at someone's home.
Oh, yeah, she's
nice.
Amazing.
She's great. She's got like a James Beard under her belt and everything too for her cookbooks.
Yeah, beautiful cookbooks. We keep trying to trick her into showing up at Intense and talking to us about cookbooks and farmers markets. So maybe one of these years, maybe she'll be so impressed that we've talked to the Mill City Farmers Market that we can get her to come out.
Yeah, I'll put in a good word.
That's right. Give her a nudge. Okay, now we've got Jenny in our pocket. We're good.
We got the connect.
we got juice.
Yeah.
Well, Blythe, it's been interesting talking to you. Do you know, Jenny, by chance, how many grants that you've given out through the Next Stage Grant Program altogether?
I do. We have given 85 grants totaling over $240,000.
Wow.
That's really incredible.
That's so impressive.
Yeah. I feel really honored to be stewards of this program and to support all these farmers. It's been really meaningful, and we're very happy to be supporting our food community.
Love what you're doing. It's really impressive, and I think that's goals for a lot of organizations to point towards. We've got to do something to keep farmers coming into markets.
For sure. And you see like farmers doing GoFundMes and like other trying to like fundraise for themselves, and that's just so much work for them and so much for them to manage. It's nice to have this vehicle for them to just apply for a grant and have another kind of system that's doing the fundraising for them and can award those grants for them for these vital pieces of equipment or vital pieces of something that will make their farm work more efficiently. And then we all benefit from that because there's more farmers at more markets.
Yeah, and it's great that this program isn't just like, only our farmers or only our vendors. It is making your whole farmers market community better, even across, outside of Minneapolis. So
I like that, but I do like that you limit it to people that are doing direct marketing.
Yeah.
I think we need to remind people how important that is and what a difference it makes financially for farmers. So if part of the results of that program are encouraging people to utilize direct marketing, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a big challenge for us going forward, is just having enough vendors apply and to keep the farmers market industry lucrative as so many other food outlets expand.
Yeah, just keep reminding people that, yes, that guy can pick up your food and deliver it, but how much are they taking off the top for doing that? So the importance of keeping that retail price is a big deal.
Yeah. Jenny, how do you advertise this grant? Like when it's the season for everybody to apply, like what are the different channels that you use to get the word out there to farmers who sometimes are very low-tech people? They're not necessarily responding to email newsletters or maybe scrolling Instagram. So how do you get the word out to those types of people?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You guys definitely know the audience. Our I think word of mouth has been key, to be honest, but digitally, our website, social media, newsletter, there's a big listserv for sustainable farmers in our region. Beyond that, we advertise at like commercial kitchens around the state, trying to get those makers. Other farmers market managers. There's like 30 farmers markets in Minneapolis alone, and most of them are independently managed. And then throughout the state, dozens more. Reaching out to them to have those direct conversations with their vendors. We also partner with the Emerging Farmers Conference, the Hmong American Farmers Association, like I mentioned earlier, other like farmer advocate groups, Farmers Union, those kind of contacts we have to put it out in their newsletters and their monthly meetings or other ways to get the word out.
That's great.
Yeah, lots of avenues to reach those people that are, could send them a fax, send them a pigeon carrier.
Yeah, we've done like tabling at some of those winter conferences too to try to talk to people directly, which is especially helpful, again, for people who aren't online, maybe because of whatever reason you're choosing not to be online.
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we try to really encourage people not to forget that some of those analog, old school ways of outreach can still be really effective and really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and important because those farmers are still important people to help.
Oh yeah,
so
that's our key. No foods, no farms.
No farmers markets.
No farms, no food, no farmers markets.
Yeah, farmers market podcast.
That's right. We need those farmers farming. Thank you very much for helping to keep that happening.
Yeah, excellent.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Jenny. Did we miss asking you anything that you wanted to make sure the world knows?
I don't think so. I mean, I suppose if there's anyone in the Minneapolis, Minnesota, Wisconsin area, they should apply for this grant in the winter. But beyond that, I think we're good.
Perfect. It's great talking to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.
We'll
Great to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today, and big thanks to WhatsGood for helping farmers markets and farm stands to make online pre-order simple, and for supporting Tent Talk, the farmers market podcast. Find more information by clicking the WhatsGood logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Join us and your fellow market participants at the 6th Annual Intense the Farmers Market Conference in San Diego, California on March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022 to grow your market and your community. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. If you're actively involved in a farmers market, please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're just getting started in farmers markets, check out our Vendor 101 online course at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcast, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. If you are listening on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni-Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.